Hello and welcome to Health in Focus. I'm your host for today, Dr. Laura. Thank you for joining me in this exciting program which I've been meaning to bring to you guys for a very long time. Today's topic is on infertility. Now, for lots of people, modern day people as well as people in the Bible, infertility was a problem that caused a lot of distress, a lot of despair. And the way God dealt with people in the Bible was actually miraculously opening wombs and causing fertile couples to become fertile. Now in the UK today, there are lots and lots of couples, in fact 1 in 7 couples who suffer from the problem of infertility. And on one hand, there's so much scientific research, there's so many scientific ways of dealing with infertility. But on the other hand, when science comes to the end and there's no other hope that's given to couples, all they have is God to look up to. So in the UK, 1 in 7 people suffer from infertility. It's the same all throughout the world. Most people can get pregnant, 85% of people get pregnant within the first year of trying to conceive, and that number rises to 92% after just 2 years. Today, I'm joined by a couple, Jonathan and Andrea. And you're both going to share your journey of infertility with the viewers. Welcome to Health in Focus.
Thank you for having us. It's a joy to be here. We really enjoy sharing the story, actually, looking back on what we've been through and just reminding ourselves of what God has done.
Thank you. So how long were you two married before you actually realised that there was a problem?
We've been married for about 2 years. I mean, the story goes back to, John likes to say this line, say your favourite line.
Well, Andrea came to the UK to get her master's, and she ended up getting her Mister as well.
So that's about 30 years ago, where we met at university. We were both doing postgrad studies. We had a wonderful time studying. We went into professional careers, had a great year. Our first year of marriage we spent in Tokyo. And so we were ticking the boxes on everything, you know, academics, on careers. So we thought when we were ready to have children, we would just tick the box on that as well. Little did we know what was going to, that story was going to turn out to be like.
Well, I have to say, you know, looking at you guys now and looking at what you were like when you got married 30 years ago, and I think we have a picture of you on your wedding day. You haven't really changed very much, have you, both of you?
Oh, bless you.
Very kind, very kind.
I think we need to bring you back on another program to talk about how to stay young. But today we're focusing on something that really was a very, very sad time in your life. And as you said, you've been married for a couple of years, you've done your masters, you came for a masters, you got your Mister.
That's right.
As well.
Yes.
And here you were, you'd started a business together, and time was moving on, and nothing seemed to be happening. When did you actually first discover that there was a problem?
It was about a year after we had started trying, and life was good. As you said, we'd set up a business. We were enjoying life pre-kids. We were enjoying trying for kids, but just nothing was happening. Nothing. It was about a year, I think, on into the journey.
And it started to dawn on me, you know, the hard thing. I remember feeling the emotions of failing as a woman, because everything else, you tick the box on the degrees. You know, I was studied at Oxford. I came over to the UK as a Jamaican Rhodes Scholar. I feel like the things that I wanted to achieve, I was able to achieve. Great career as a management consultant. And yet, for me, it felt like this one thing that I was put on earth to do as a woman, I just wasn't able to make happen. And the thoughts that go through your head at those times can be really crushing emotionally. So it was tough. It was tough. We had to I guess, started trying everything. Because we were running the business, people were saying, maybe you are too stressed out, you need to relax a bit more, you need to go on holidays a bit more. All kinds of tests and things that we tried to make it work our way. I mean, the stories we could tell.
But the bizarre thing is, even people who were not supposed to be having children were falling pregnant left, right, and center.
Like your receptionist.
We had a receptionist with us, casual, just in casual relationships, dating. Next thing you know, she's pregnant. How did that happen?
Without even trying.
Without even trying. And then in our church, there was another young lady in the church who, not supposed to be falling pregnant, single young lady, she's pregnant. We said, Lord, why not us?
But there was that classic experience where our family had come over from the States, and we were the first to get married of the siblings on both sides, and we just saw all the firsts going. Somebody else had the first grandchild, loved them to bits, but it wasn't us. Somebody else had the first boy, had the first girl, and there was this time where my family came over from the States. Both sisters live in the US, and they were doing holiday at our home. We're living in a semi-detached where we'd converted the loft room as well. After Christmas, my sister announced that she's pregnant with her second child. She was in the loft room, and I'm like, Lord, you visited, but the wrong room. What was happening with us, Mother's Day was a tough time, and I remember one of the times that was really special, feeling really supported by Jon, was everybody else was able to celebrate Mother's Day around me, and he bought me a Mother's Day card just to remind me that one day I'd celebrate Mother's Day as well, and that was really a very special moment of care.
That's amazing, and that's amazing that you married a man of faith who could believe for you even when sometimes your own ability to hold on was weakening. He continued to believe for you. Now tell me what happened about 18 months after you've been trying for a family. You were in church, minding your business.
It was quite something. We literally were in church minding our business, and if you remember back to the days of the overhead projectors, we were on duty that Sunday. We were doing the overhead projector, the two of us side by side, and there was a visiting preacher in. Never met him before. And he literally, at one point in the service, he just said, this couple over here, there's an issue in your life, isn't there? We said, issue? He said, well, we'll pray for you after. Okay, thank you. And at the end, he said, there's an issue in your life, isn't there? We said, well, he said, children an issue. We said, well, yeah, absolutely. It's about 18 months into this journey now. And he said, the Lord has shown me your son. You will have a son, and he will be with you in your ministry. At that point, ministry, what ministry? We had no ministry, but it was as clear to him as that. He said, the Lord has shown me your son. And we were just blown away by that, blown away.
And we thought it was going to happen straight away. We thought, okay, this is the sign. God has spoken. We're going to have children. Little did we know the journey ahead.
And what's a journey? What's a journey? So it was about 3 years now of trying that you decided, okay, God seems to have spoken through somebody who seemed to have heard from God. Your sisters, your family, getting pregnant, grandchildren building up in numbers. And there you are, still childless. So what did you do?
Well, first we did a lot of praying, we did a lot of crying, we did a lot of trying to see if there was anything in our life, in our ancestry, with our family that could have missed the mark with God. We looked through the house. There are some African sculptures that we had that, in desperation, is this offending God? We don't know the meaning of it. Get rid of those. There's a jade horse that we bought in China, and then we heard that all the jade was dedicated to another God, so we got rid of that as well. Just trying in our own strength to see what was stopping it. God has spoken. What else do we need to do? And then, as you say, about 3 years in, we thought, okay, let's look at medical science. Maybe there's something to be responsible about this. Let's go and get ourselves checked out, didn't we?
Yeah, and we looked at all the different options. And in the end, IVF seemed to make the most sense for us. So we said, okay, let's give it a shot.
Now, before IVF, Andrea had been to see the doctor, and you had the blood tests and these tests, and you had something called a hysterosalpingogram, and that showed up some interesting things. And I've actually got a letter that was written by the consultant on the condition that you have. Now, difficult to read it at that level, but in a second letter, they've highlighted in the second image there, we've highlighted the words endometriosis, and you can see that up there. So you had endometriosis, you had scarring, you had ovarian cysts as well, and as if that was not enough, you also had fibroids, didn't you?
Had the works. And in terms of tests, 20 odd years on, I still remember the word hysterosalpingogram and the dye flowing through. So with all the tests, they found that there was nothing obstructing pregnancy from happening. So we went through doing the first round of IVF with the understanding that endometriosis is there. Maybe that's something we'll have to deal with, but let's try the first round of IVF. I tell you what, that's a process that you really have to brace yourself for it. I mean, Jon can tell you his side of the story.
I mean, talk about something that is absolutely invasive. I mean, you feel like you're bearing your all. That you can also even get to the point where it gets a little bit of, well, what should I say? When you have to put your little specimen pot on the shelf for collection, you feel a little bit like looking maybe at the next one alongside you, saying, well, how are we doing with this? Is there some hope here? How can we do this?
Comparing samples.
There is a, you have to have a sense of humor to get through it, absolutely. It is quite a process, I'll tell you that for nothing. And there is a book that actually helped us tremendously at the time. This is written by, what's his name now, the comedian?
Ben
Elton. This book called Inconceivable. And it's his experience of going through infertility. And it's just it shows you the humor, and you need the humor to get through the serious side of it, because it is serious, as Andrew can tell you her journey.
I used to say I felt like there were so many injections, just the process of every day going to be checked before you go to work, blood tests. I felt like, I said to my mum one day, I feel like I can drink some water and stand in the garden and just sprinkle it with all the injections that I've had. We agreed that once we make a decision to follow a route, we're going to go see it through to the end, but you had to have each other's back and keep each other in good humor. The whole process was so unreal as well. And anyway, we went through with the first round of IVF.
You did. Now, infertility is something that, as I said, affects 1 in 7 couples. And the statistics show that actually the causes of infertility are equal for both men and women. So endometriosis, fibroids, etc. could well have been a problem that Jonathan had. And there's just a little image on the screen that I just want to show you the statistics of the causes of infertility, as well as the different types of causes for the men and the women. So in the UK, as I said, there's a 30% split between the causes of infertility for men and women. Combined, where both the couple have some problem, is only 10%, and a great 30%, a third of people do not have a reason why they're infertile. So it was very fortunate for you that they were able actually to pinpoint what could be the possible causes, like scarring with endometriosis, which can be quite severe. So in the top diagram there, we've got the causes, the male causes of infertility. And by far the largest cause is something called varicoceles, which are actually varicose veins in the scrotum, which can affect the blood supply and also cause obstruction. But you have other things like testicular failure, undescended testes, other kinds of obstruction due to infections and blocking. A large percent of unknown causes in men as well. And in women, at the bottom diagram, we've got things like ovulatory disorders where women are not making an egg regularly, they're not ovulating on a regular basis. 15% like you had endometriosis, Andrea, pelvic adhesions, blockages of tubes, and other sorts of problems, sometimes hormonal problems, sometimes problems in the brain. There's something called hyperprolactinemia, which is a problem that affects the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland sends out this hormone called prolactin, which can affect the reproductive organs. And just briefly, you already mentioned as IVF as one of the routes that you went down. In the UK, again, there are lots of very different treatments that are offered. And if a woman's not ovulating properly, then they would give her something called Clomid to stimulate her ovulation. And there are other methods such as intrauterine insemination, where the semen is directly injected into the womb. 2,000 babies a year are born by IUI, intrauterine insemination. Then there's another process called ICSI, which is called intracytoplasmic sperm injection. And 2,500 babies a year are born by ICSI. But as you said, the route you chose to go, which was IVF, in vitro fertilization, where mature eggs are produced, fertilized outside the womb, and then a couple are reimplanted back into the womb, 10,000 babies a year are born by this method. And as you said, this was the method that you decided to go for. Now, the next image I've got is actually of your internals, Andrea.
You're going to know me inside out now.
We know you very much so, Andrea. Can you explain this image for me and what actually was shown here?
Well, this was the surgery that I had. So what we discovered with the first round of IVF is that even though there wasn't anything particularly blocking the tubes or preventing pregnancy to happen, the ovaries, firstly, I wasn't responding strongly enough to the medication. So with IVF, it stimulates the overproduction of eggs. Usually people get between 10, 20 odd eggs. I was getting 2 or 3, and they couldn't get to one of the ovaries. So they realized that because of all the adhesions from the endometriosis sticking the ovaries to bits of just my insides, everything was sticking to each other. This is a picture of the fibroids that they had to move, get to remove from the uterus,
quite
as well as some.
There,
yes,
as you can see, very
well, you'll understand that more than me, but
yeah.
lots of bits in there that were just unnecessary and possibly wreaking havoc in the whole reproductive system. So it ended up being a 3-hour surgery, much longer than they anticipated, and even the recovery time was long. But you know, we came out of all of that hopeful that by freeing up the system, getting rid of the scar tissue, getting rid of the fibroids, that meant everything was now clear and we were green light to go to get pregnant. And then we did things like, you know, the rhythm cycle and come on, John, whatever mood you're in, it's time now. The thermometer says it's time now. And all the stories we could tell you. It took the joy out of lovemaking because we just had to go by the clock, go by the calendar, keep your legs up on the wall. I mean, I won't go into any more detail, but oh my gosh, what a journey. But that then became a really a telling time in my faith journey in particular, because after the first IVF failed and then we had the surgery and we thought everything was going to be fine, then my dad got really ill. And I realized that, you know, this could be it for my dad. And I said, okay, God, you don't seem to be in a hurry about answering this prayer over children. So I'll give up this prayer for children if you'll just heal my dad. And then my dad died. And it's that moment of, what do you do when God calls your bluff? And this was in 2000. So while the world was getting ready to celebrate the millennium and the change of the century and everybody was partying, my world was literally falling apart. The bottom just fell out because I felt like I had prayed everything I had in me to get my dad to live, and then he died. And looking back, I realized there are quite a few faith lessons that I'd learned, but at the time it just felt so raw and so painful. I did things out of habit rather than out of desire. I didn't know what to pray anymore, so I'd literally sit there for devotions and I don't know what to say, God, I've said everything else. I'd go to church because I was in the habit of going, but every now and again you'd hear a song or meet somebody who would lift your spirits a little bit, but it felt like that, you know, that real belly laugh, that deep joy where you laugh with abandon, that had just gone. And I remember sitting in church one Sunday and somebody was singing this song, I love the way you father me. And that hurt. And I sat there and I said, God, I don't like the way you father me, because if you were my dad, you would have done things very differently. I shared that story with some other relatives, and they say, you can't talk to God like that. But what I learned is you can be raw and real with God. God can take it, because he knows what's going on the inside anyway. And it's at times like those when you're your most vulnerable with God, that when you're real with him, he'll be real with you. And that was an anchoring moment in my faith where I realized that the Holy Spirit's promise to comfort and to carry you through things where you can't carry yourself. I didn't know how to pray anymore, but he was there building faith and proving the verse that says, even when we're faithless, God remains faithful. And got me to a point, this is getting to the summer of 2000, where it was, okay, God, I find myself hoping again. I find myself believing again. I realize that you are God and I am not, and you don't really give in to ultimatums. So where else can I go? If I give up on my faith, what am I going to do? And so...
And then you had the words that you hung on to, didn't you, Andrea?
Yeah.
We got an image of your actual, these prayer points.
Some of the verses, yes.
That you held on to, and you'd written them down. You actually hand wrote them down, and we got an image of those words. And we can't quite read the handwriting because you should be a doctor, really. But it shows Deuteronomy 28:4, Genesis 21:1-2. Samuel 1:19-20, and Genesis 21:6-7. And these are scriptures that you stood on, you confessed, you proclaimed, you spoke over your lives, your husband joined you in the process, and still nothing was happening. And the sad thing is, and the last image I've got is actually the last failed IVF, is that right? When you come to the end and you thought, well, just take us through that bit now. We've got a picture there of the embryos not growing. There they were.
Yeah, so the bottom one is the first IVF, and the top image with the two, that was the second IVF. And boy, I was convinced, we were convinced that this is when we were going to be having twins, that the reward was going to be, after all of this, we were going to end up with two for the price of one, so to speak. We went through the IVF process. We had the eggs reinserted. We went on holiday to have time out, so that we were doing everything we could. We had people praying for us, the verses that we stood on, good Nigerian prayer warriors. I have a very good friend and her sister who would come and pray with us and cry out to God, you know, I want my baby, I want my baby. And we really believed that this was going to be it, that after all this journey, this is now in 2000, going into 2001. But the funny thing is, going into that year, after I got to this place of surrender, and we just said, you know what, Lord, we trust you. Baby or no baby, our life is just totally in your hands. Do with us as you will. And with the new year going into 2001, I just had this sense that we were going to get to the point where medical science wouldn't work anymore. And when I said it, I didn't know what was going to happen. But then Jon, we had the visit with so the IVF didn't work. And that was devastating enough. But then we had the meeting, didn't we, with the consultant?
Yeah, but even before that, what blew me away was, even with all the modern science and technology, after they've inserted the embryos or the eggs into the uterus, they say, good luck. So what do you mean, good luck? We've taken us all this journey. There must be more certainty. They said, no, that's as far as we can go. After that, you're on your own. So we said, well, Lord, if this is the journey, let's go. But I think where Andrew was going there was, after the second IVF failed, we had to have a meeting with the consultant to say, okay, where do we go from here? What are the next steps? And I was late getting to the meeting because I was running late from some office meeting. Anyway, he said to Andrea, please just wait for a moment. I want your husband to be here and we can have the conversation together. And she says now in hindsight, she should have realized there was something going on here. But I remember when we got there, he sat us down, and I'll never forget his words. He said, I'm sorry, but there's nothing that modern medical science can do for you. You probably will never have children.
Wow. Those words were spoken by man, weren't they?
That was a blow, because where do you go after that when you've tried everything that you could, that you thought was possible, and you still remembering this word from God, but suddenly this bombshell lands. There's nothing that medical science can do for you anymore. You probably will never have children.
Wow. Well, we're going to leave it there, and we're going to come back in another program to continue this story of Jonathan and Andrea Taylor-Cummings and their journey with infertility. You know, you've heard they're like the modern day Abraham and Sarah, maybe not as old. Isaac, Rebecca, Jacob, Rachel, Elkanah, Hannah, and all those couples biblically who went through the problem of trying to have a child. You've heard their testimony, you've seen the pictures, the stories, you've seen the evidence, and you've heard how they've continued to wait and wait. They've tried everything that they could do in terms of modern medicine and modern technology. And the answer that the surgeon gave to them was, sorry, there's nothing more we can do. And as we seek the Lord and as we look to him for answers, I just want to encourage you, if you are going through infertility right now as a couple, then remember that there is a God. Our God is able, and he may not do it the way you wanted to, just like Jonathan and Andrea. They tried everything they knew to do. She had the surgery. Nothing seemed to work. There's some more scriptures there to encourage you to continue to seek the Lord and confess and declare upon your lives. And in fact, one of them is written twice, so maybe
that's a really
that is
important
encouragement for somebody that they need to know and they need to confess and declare that word. So you've been watching Health in Focus with Dr. Laura, and we'll be coming back in the next program to continue where we've left off. And I just want to thank you both, Jonathan and Andrea, for this testimony, this journey, this painful journey that you've walked through with us. Please interact with me at laura@revelationtv.com. And till we'll see you again next time, God bless you. Be strong and be whole in Jesus' name.
Amen.